Hi everyone. We read a beautiful chapter that was on villain, victim, and lover, and the chapter somewhere spoke about that how a certain incident keeps playing in our mind, and how with that constant excessive thought process, somewhere we are making ourselves victim, because this entire process of thinking negatively about a certain situation, or constantly thinking about a certain situation, is the reason. It's a place from the ego, and it's not your true being. The ego likes the problems, and ego likes to think about problems, wherein the being, which is your true self, is always thinking of how I evolve out of this situation, how I can rise above this situation, and I can create a life that is without hardship and with more ease, with more joy. So ever you or anybody who's watching this are going to watch it in the future, just know that if you are in a situation where you're thinking about the problem, always know that it is the function of the ego, it is not your function, and you are the one who would want to rise above it. But that is possible only if you're aware that this is not me and there's somebody else who's me. So this is a beautiful solution given by Eckhart Tolle here. And with that, somewhere he's also connecting us in the play, in the role play of how we act as parents. How relationship unfold between parent and child, how we are not in, we feel ourselves superior to children, and they begin to feel inferior to us, because we operate from the arrogance, we operate from that ego self, wherein the child wants us to be with them, present in the moment, and that would be conscious parenting. So from that chapter, and if you want to hear me out in much detail, then the video might be in one of my profile page somewhere, so do look up for that. And then we are going to the next chapter, and that is happiness as a role versus true happiness. What does it mean, happiness as a role? Let's see what Eckhart Tolle has to say. How are you? Just great. Couldn't be better. True or false? He says in many cases, happiness is a role people play, and behind the smiling facade, there is a great deal of pain. Depression, breakdowns, overreactions are common when unhappiness is covered up behind a smiling exterior and brilliant white teeth. When there is a denial, sometimes even to one's self, that there is much unhappiness. Just fine is a role the ego plays. Sometimes we ask people, how are you? And somewhere we know that there's something going on behind that smile, but the person says just fine. I'd also add to that most times we're conditioned that you have to show a false face to the world, otherwise you become vulnerable to the world. People would eat you up if you show that you're weak, or that there is a problem in you. But what if with that we begin to tell lies to ourselves that we are fine where we are not. So this is what it is, and let's know that this is a role of an ego, it's still not you. So let's go ahead. More commonly in America, just fine is a role that ego plays, and in certain other countries where being and looking miserable is almost the norm, and therefore more socially acceptable they become, if only they act as they are miserable. It is probably an exaggeration, but I'm told that in the capital of one Nordic country, you run the risk of being arrested for drunken behavior if you smile at strangers in the street. If there is unhappiness in you, first you need to acknowledge that it is there. But don't say I'm unhappy. There's a beautiful demarcation that he is giving, and let's pay close attention to that. Don't say I'm unhappy. Unhappiness has nothing to do with who you are. Say there is unhappiness in me. Then investigate it. a situation you find yourself in may have something to do with it. Action may be required to change the situation or remove yourself from it. And if there is nothing you can do, face what is and say, well, right now, this is how it is. It's a beautiful solution that Eckhart Tolle gives over here to all of us. See, it's not possible that we will not come across problems and obstacles in life or unhappy situations. It's unhappy situation. It's not supposed to make you unhappy. All right. So now the solution is extremely simple. 3 things, and each situation may require a different solution. An action may be required to change the situation, meaning you change something about you in that situation and the entire equation of the situation changes and you're out of that. The second is you remove yourself from the situation. There are certain situations that requires you to remove yourself from the situation. And the third solution is that sometimes you don't need to change anything in you. Maybe it's the other person's trauma that is playing role in that situation. So you don't have to change yourself there. But you are aware that it is not my problem. It is not, the situation is not worse because of me. You cannot take yourself out of that situation because possibly in that very moment, in the near future, the situation is not going to change. So in that case, without making you unhappy, Eckhart Tolle says that, well, right now you accept it and tell to yourself that right now this is how it is. I can either accept it or make myself miserable. So it's a choice whether you want to make yourself miserable and because of that situation or not. So that's the beauty of the simple 3 solutions that Eckhart Tolle gives. The primary cause of unhappiness is never the situation but your thoughts about it. Wonderfully said. It's our thoughts that creates our reality, and this is a quote that I say again and again and again. So be aware of the thoughts you are thinking, separate them from the situation which is always neutral, which always is as it is. There is the situation or the fact, and here are my thoughts about it. Instead of making up stories, stay with the facts. Now he's giving a beautiful example to identify a difference between a story and the fact. For example, somebody says, I'm ruined. Now that is a story. You put yourself into the place of victim, you became the villain of your life, and you stopped loving yourself in that moment. The chapter that we read before. Now this became a story because when you become the villain, the victim, and stop being the lover of yourself is where you're actually telling a story. Now how to change that? This is limiting you and this is preventing you from taking effective action towards that situation. So now how do you change it? I have 50 cents left in my bank account. Now that is a fact. Facing facts is always empowering. Be aware that what you think to a large extent creates the emotions that you feel. See the link between your thinking and your emotions. Rather than being your thoughts and emotions, be the awareness behind it. See, this is exactly opposite to what we have read in the entire chapter. He says, don't seek happiness. Wow, that's quite opposite to what we have just read. If you seek happiness, you won't find it. Because seeking is the antithesis of happiness. Happiness is ever elusive, but freedom from unhappiness is attainable now. By facing what is rather than making up stories about it. Unhappiness covers up your neutral state of well-being, and this is where diseases and illnesses begin to occur in our bodies. Unhappiness covers up your neutral state of well-being and inner peace, the source of true happiness. So this is what it is. What is true happiness? Your well-being, your inner peace is the source of true happiness. Beautiful. And this is exactly why many times people come to me and they say we can't meditate. When we sit for the meditation, we have all this thoughts coming up, and we just go round and round in the problems that we are facing, instead of trying to focus on a certain thing or the part that we are trying to meditate for, and it's not happening. And this is where the healing comes in. The exact thing that Eckhart Tolle is saying, that first thing is to remove yourself from what is making you unhappy. When that happens, meditation is towards you going towards your being, connecting with your being. So that only can happen, the first thing, when you remove all the factors, all the points of views that is creating unhappiness in your life. So removing unhappiness is possible. At the core, you are the happiness. And that's why you can't find it outside, it's within. And I think we've heard, all of us have heard this quote, this statement again and again and again from ancient times, and the way we actualize this is what Eckhart Tolle has talked about. And tomorrow we're going to be reading another beautiful chapter, and you will know why it is a beautiful chapter. We read conscious parenting and we understood the villain and the victim, and now we're going to be reading conscious suffering. Wow, what does it mean? We'll know very soon. Take care everyone, and see you tomorrow.